Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Mitt and I have $27,000 invested into Palantir. So on this channel, we do a lot of videos about Palantir. Now, today's video, we're talking about how Palantir has created a partnership with AWS. This is not new news, but I wanted to analyze ultimately what this means for the relationship of the company and Amazon and the trajectory of the company over the next decade, and its ability to ultimately monetize these relationships that it's created with AWS customers. Now, this was launched around March 5th of this year when Palantir launched its ERP Suite, which is Enterprise Resource Planning. For people who don't know what enterprise resource planning is, it's basically companies, you're talking about, Fortune 50, Fortune 100, Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 different companies that ultimately have organizations that are very, very large. And because these organizations are very, very large, they need to be able to plan within these organizations. There's a lot of different departments in the organizations and the companies themselves. You have marketing, you have sales, you have IT, you have finance, you have customer acquisition. You have all these different departments that focus on specializing upon different things, which means there's a variety of different variables they all need to focus on in terms of bringing all those things together and making it cohesive enough for the business or the company or the organization to ultimately operate. Enterprise resource management or planning is basically the ability to have software and conducted systems that are spread across the entire organization that allow each department and the thousands of different employees when you get into the really, really big companies that are working on those different tasks to ultimately communicate with each other and have sophisticated plans that allows the organization to run on the day-by-day more effectively. So an example of an ERP suite, which is a much more simpler example. Well, I'll give you like a more technical one and a simple one. A very technical one is something like Salesforce. So Salesforce is an entire CRM, customer relationship management software, where customers are ultimately put into a database that allows the organization to understand what the relationship that the organization has with those customers. So if you're in sales and you have, 5 people in your pipeline, which means these are people that are potentially going to be customers, but you still have to close the deal on them, then you would use Salesforce as a software to monitor and manage your ability to get those deals ultimately done, all the way from prospecting those leads in the very beginning and like figuring out if this person is even willing to buy the software till the very end and closing the deal. And that software is spread across a bunch of different organizations within the larger company in order for it to be more effective. Another simple one is Slack, right? Slack is somewhat of an ERP because ultimately at the end of the day, it's business communications at scale. And when you are communicating with the finance guy and you're in this small, tiny part of marketing and you're in Tokyo and they're in London, Slack ultimately becomes this integrated system where you can communicate with them almost basically publicly or, personally, but publicly so that the rest of the team members, if you're on the same team, can see what you guys are working on and it can all work cohesively and make sense. ERP is a massive, massive business. Software companies spend lots of money developing solutions for enterprise clients because that's also where the money is, right? You could create a software company that goes to like individual consumers and people may pay you like 10, 15 bucks a month to use it. Or you could, sell a piece of software to Facebook that pays you $5-10 million a year to use that service. It's a fundamentally different relationship and it's a fundamentally different clientele if you're able to launch them. Now, Palantir from the press release said that enterprises across sectors invest heavily in ERP and how they share a common struggle to how to realize the full value of data, which is really important, right? So a common struggle that exists within organizations and enterprises, how do they maximize the efficiency and effectiveness of the data that they actually contain? To address this problem, Palantir developed the ERP Suite, a turnkey solution optimized to run on Amazon Web Services, and this is really important, we're going to get to it in a second for why, that enables rapid integration and analysis of data within the ERP landscape. The ERP Suite is now available to all AWS customers and has been adopted by a number of enterprises, including BP, major energy company, and Landsix, to enable significant cost savings within weeks. So first of all, the reason I think this is important, the reason this also informs an investment decision in terms of the company is because AWS, for those who don't know, I've done some videos about them, or I've spoken about AWS in some of the previous videos. AWS is basically the basis by which most companies around the world store their data, right? So AWS is Amazon Web Services, and basically Amazon takes its scale and it applies that scale in terms of the cloud computing servers and warehouses that they have to give basic cloud computing necessities to startups, mid-stage businesses, very large-scale organizations to host their data on the backs of Amazon servers. They pay a fee to Amazon, Amazon takes that fee, and it basically handles everything for those organizations. If you actually are like certified as an Amazon Web Services engineer, I mean, at the highest levels, you can make like $150,000, $160,000, right? It's a very in-demand job because almost every organization uses either Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, or AWS. AWS is the leader in the category because I think they innovated against it first back in 2006. So Palantir partnering with AWS is really important, right? And this partnership is something that they've been working on for a while. So Josh Harris, the vice president of Palantir, said, "We have been collaborating with AWS for the last year in a number of vertical markets," right? So for the last year, from 2020 to 2021, they've been working with AWS in a variety of different markets. With this new ERP Suite offering, we have seen an incredible savings delivered directly to customers in a matter of weeks. Working together with AWS, we look forward to scaling this effort to more customers faster. Why does this matter? Palantir already is a very sticky software. We talked about this a while ago in a video I did about how Palantir becomes sticky, but the sort of overall reason for this is because once you embed Palantir software, it connects with a lot of the company's software in and of itself. Same thing with a Salesforce or like a Slack, right? You're not going to leave your business communication if you're already using Slack. AWS is one of those things that's integrated with a lot of different companies. So if Palantir, and most people aren't switching from AWS, right? Unless the cost savings are phenomenal, they're going to stay with AWS. To host their and store their data. If Palantir can partner with AWS to make sense of the data, not only host and store it, and offer efficiency in terms of how organizations are using that data to ultimately save costs, which we'll get into a second for some of these case studies that they've implemented with AWS customers, then you've got a ton, and I mean a ton, of AWS customers over the next 5-10 years that would be looking for the same solutions, right? Not because they, want some fancy software, but because it saves them money, right? Like at the end of the day, we're talking dollars here. And if Palantir can save you money and AWS can store your data and something else can make sense of your data that allows you to save money because of that data, then that's a pretty big thing for Palantir. Now, Teresa Carlson, vice president of AWS, said, "We're excited to be working with Palantir to make the suite of tools available on AWS and help our customers get to insights faster, unlocking the data they already have. Using AWS, Palantir's ERP Suite can help customers offload the complexity, gain faster intelligence from their data, and make critical decisions to save time and expenses." Again, if you've been confused about what Palantir does, Teresa, she basically just summarized it right there. Integrating with your data to be able to save you time, money, and essentially make your company more efficient, and partnering with Amazon clients in terms of building the software on top of AWS so that the integration is more vertical. Vertical integration means that you don't have to switch a lot of screens, right? It's on one screen, everything makes sense. It's like kind of like a plugin. You plug it, you attach the piece of software to the AWS thing. It all integrates. It all makes sense. It's all cohesive, and then you as the end user in the company that has to use that software have a more seamless experience. That's a big deal, right? That's a very big deal, especially in the context of if AWS customers more and more across the world start understanding Palantir. That creates the total addressable market that Palantir estimated to be about $119 billion, become very conservative, right? At that point, like you could see that exponentially growing at scale, especially with the network effects that Palantir is going to get from the data that starts entering. Like if Palantir starts partnering with not every, but a lot of AWS clients, the data that they're going to be getting into the Foundry software that I've talked about in other videos, and I'll make some more videos about that'll help you understand it, means that the data and the algorithms itself are going to be a lot better for Palantir and all of its partners that work with the software. Like it's going to get more faster, more efficient, more effective, more optimized, which means the TAM is going to increase even more because there's going to be more people that want to use the best-in-class service that exists when it comes to understanding data. That's really important. Last thing we'll do is a case study. So multinational energy company BP was an early adopter of the ERP Suite. Within 2 weeks of installing the ERP Suite, BP was able to unlock approximately $50 million in working capital and has the potential to unlock further savings if applied across their worldwide supply chain. BP, oil, gas, energy company, they were able to put Palantir software into their integration of AWS. BP is one of those major clients for AWS, and they were able to unlock insights from their data, which was able to save them money. And that's the key nature of why Palantir is one of those companies that is going to be, a dime a dozen company, a sort of monopolistic company within its own right. There are very few companies that exist that are using AI and machine learning, predictive simulated models at scale and at a level that is fundamentally different than what the competition offers to enable insights into data spread across a variety of industries within a company, supply chain being one of the biggest, because if you can optimize your supply chain, you can save a lot of money. That can result in saving $50 million in a couple weeks, right? That's pretty big. So overall, right, this is really why I wanted to sort of make this video and sort of talk about it. The last thing I'll say here is that Palantir has been helping customers get more value out of their data. Aggregation of data from any platform, including existing data lakes, allows both engineers and non-technical users, which is the key here, to leverage the full granularity of their ERP data to ask and answer business questions and execute data-driven operations without the need of in-house ERP subject matters. And that's essentially what BP did, right? And that's essentially what other AWS clients are going to do. They're not going to hire some specialist data engineer to make sense of their data, to analyze the data, or operate it in-house, because they're just not going to get the best answers. They're going to integrate a software that exists, just like you integrate Slack, just like you don't build your own messaging app, just like you integrate Salesforce, you don't integrate your own prospecting lead to pipeline system. You just integrate these things because they're best in class, they're first in class, they have industry recognition, and then they make sense of the things you want to do so that non-technical people, which are the majority of people using this software at these companies, are able to then make sense of the software and able to then use it. So overall, I think this partnership with the AWS is really important. Again, this is not new news. This happened in the past, but I sort of wanted to talk about it because like, if you can imagine the potential of what this means for Palantir to be able to work with more and more companies that are integrated already with AWS, it becomes as simple as just like selling it at that point, right? Because almost every company in the world, not every, again, I keep exaggerating, not every company, but a lot of companies use AWS. And I didn't even know about that. I didn't even know about AWS. You know how you think like everyone buys their stuff off Amazon? All the companies that kind of sell you the stuff that you're like buying all these brands and products from, a lot of them probably use AWS. And if you've got these types of key case studies in the early years of Palantir being public, working with companies that are integrated with AWS, you imagine the sky's the limit for them to integrate with every company working with AWS to optimize data, and then every company working with Google and Microsoft Azure to optimize their data. And then the TAM just starts increasing. And then you see Palantir really working with a boatload of companies to ultimately optimize and save their data because they're the only company that can't do that. Now, one concern I think some people may have is like, oh, would Amazon steal this, right? Or is Amazon like trying to integrate them so they can understand more about them? This is a silly concern, right? You got to understand that big corporations, unless they're social companies, right? With like Twitter stealing Clubhouse or Zuckerberg implementing audio rooms with Clubhouse and stuff. If you guys don't know what Clubhouse is, it's like a live audio app, right? And Facebook and Twitter, as soon as Clubhouse got 1 million users, they like stole the feature and they put it into their platforms. Unless you're like a social company, it's very difficult for a big corporation to steal something that you've developed for 19 years that requires sophisticated AI and ML machine learning. I said ML machine learning again. I don't know. AI, ML predictive models that also requires network effects around the data that is integrated into those softwares, that requires optimization of those softwares to be integrated with a multitude of different clients, particularly the government that's been, like, it requires privacy at scale because you're working with high level data. It is very difficult for something like an Amazon to just be like, oh, we're just going to use the Palantir software, we're going to learn all about it, and then we're going to create our own version of Foundry. Amazon doesn't specialize in that. B, to specialize in that, you're talking about a company that has a 20-year head start. So a lot of times companies are like, all right, we can't do that, right? Amazon could have made a messaging app. They could have made a Slack, but they don't do that. That's not what they're optimized for. And usually when you do things you're not optimized for, like the Fire phone that came out in 2014, it ends up failing. Now, some of those things you have to try because you just have to try innovating as a company, but a lot of things ended up failing if you're not sophisticated enough to optimize in those things and know those things with a granular level of detail, a la Google Plus, if you guys remember that, starting its own social network. Like, it had no chance against Facebook or Twitter because Google didn't know what the hell they were doing, right? They optimized in search, organization of content, not creating social graphs where people actually interact with each other on existing platforms. So at that point, I'm not really worried about Amazon, but I understand the concern because Amazon does steal a lot of stuff, or they try to steal a lot of stuff, but I don't think they would necessarily do that. I think they're more like, okay, we have the customers, we can give our customers even more savings, which is going to allow them to keep using us because they're going to like the service that we provide if we integrate and bring additions on top of the AWS suite so that clients can use AWS consistently forever with all these different integrations and plugins that make the experience better, which allows us to keep our business. That's why we're forming this partnership with Palantir. It's a win-win for both sides, and that's why it makes sense. So those are my overall thoughts on why Palantir has partnered with AWS. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Really interesting stuff. And overall, if it can partner with more and more clients that work with AWS, then there is a big addressable market in the future coming up for Palantir. My name is Amit. Thank you guys for watching the Daily Business Show, and I'll see you on the next one.